my daughter gave me for Hanukkah this wonderful apron, so I think I have to now perform for it. So I'm really excited about it. But anyway, I'm here to tell you all about galettes. There's savory galettes and there are sweet galettes. But first, let me tell you a little background about a galette. Galette is a term used in French cuisine to designate various types of flat, round, free-form, crusty cakes. Galettes refer to the catch-all term for a pastry base, topped with either sweet or savory fillings, with the edges roughly folded to create a gorgeous, rustic-looking bake. The history of galettes dates back to the Neolithic ages, and it is believed that galette recipes would have evolved from ancient practice of spreading a thick cereal-type paste on hot stones. The word galette comes from the Norman word gale, pardon me, meaning a flat cake, and is often used in French cuisine to talk about cakes that don't require a tin. So let's get started, but first I like to show you what the end result is going to look like. So if Peter would pan in, I'm going to show you a sweet galette. The sweet galette is made with different fruits, free-form style, and topped with a little garnish of pistachio because I use Halvah that has pistachios in it in the crust. The savory galette has lots of vegetables, and I've garnished it with feta cheese and chopped scallions from my garden. And this crust is made with cheddar cheese, so it's really wonderful. Also, for the vegetable one, I sauteed the vegetables in olive oil. So technically, it's a Hanukkah, different recipe. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is show you how to make the crust for the savory galette, which is with cheddar cheese. So I'm going to move over here and go to my station over here and show you that I have a food processor, and I make my crust in a food processor. I've measured out my flour over here. I've measured out my flour. The one thing that I've also done is put in some fresh thyme, which goes into the crust. But I must tell you that it's very interesting how to remove it. So I want to show you how to remove the thyme that's fresh, grown in the garden, or fresh that you buy at the market. It looks like a stick and little leaves are coming from it. So let's show you exactly how to take it off the vine. You put your fingers here and you just pull ever so slightly, and it removes the thyme from the stalk. If you want to get the rest of it, and then the rest of it. And even the floor likes the thyme. So you want to make sure that you start at the end that's the thinnest, because that's the way that the thyme grows, and it's easier to remove the thyme that way. Fresh thyme is not as potent as thyme that you buy in the store that is dried. So if you use fresh thyme, you'll have to use more than what the recipe calls for. And I've indicated it in my recipe that you will receive if you would like it after this program. So I'm finishing up with my thyme, and in here I have my flour and salt, and I'm going to put it into my food processor. Peter says I should turn on the light so you can see better. So I'm going to let me put a light on here, and I'm going to put in a food processor. Now, the type of blade you would use is a blade that is for dough. There. And then the next ingredient besides that is shredded sharp cheese. I've done a lot of prepping in advance so that you don't have to wait while I'm getting the cheese done. I prefer to do sharp cheese and to do it from the block, not to buy it in the package. They add something to a preservative to the cheese that's in a package. This is more fresher. And so I suggest that you use that instead. Okay, the next thing you need is the salt, which is in there, the thyme, which is in there, and now you need the butter. I left it in the refrigerator because I want to make sure it's cold. So you slice the butter like this, but I'm going to slice it just to make sure that you understand how the butter is sliced. You're just making little slices of the butter like so, and then you're going to add them one at a time into the food processor. So, and you distribute it evenly, okay? And it's 1 stick of butter or half a cup. That's the measurement. Next, you need 1/4 cup of water. What I tend to like to do is I like to mix this up first. So I'm going to put this on. And I apologize for the noise. Bring it out. I put it on and I have a dough cycle. So I'm going to do that. As it's doing that, I'm going to get the ice water out of the refrigerator. What you're going to look for is crumbly. If you do this by hand, and you can do this by hand with a dough masher, blender, which I could show you. I knew where it was. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know where it is. Okay, see how it's getting really nice and crumbly? That's what you want it to look like. So you move the top, and now you want to add 1/4 cup of water. But you want it to become a dough. It's a miracle. It's like Hanukkah. It's a miracle. It became a dough. It's done. That didn't take very long, did it? Okay, this is what it looks like when it's done. Do you see? It's a little moist. It's okay. All right, so I take this off. Remove all the dough from the blade. And then I want to take my spatula and get it out of my thing. Now I'm going to walk over there, Peter, if you want to follow me. Because one of the things that you want to make sure you don't have is a soggy bottom. So the way to prevent a soggy bottom when you're making this type of a recipe or a galette, or even with pies, you want to sprinkle a little bit of breadcrumbs on the bottom of where you're going to roll it out. So I'm going to put the dough here, take it out of the, mush it down, take some more out. Make sure I get it as much as I can out of here. And then what you want to do is you want to make it into a circle. That's your next step before you put it into the refrigerator. Now, when I made this, the other one that I just showed you, I actually didn't even put it in the refrigerator. It says I put it in for an hour. If you put it in that long, it becomes difficult to roll out. So my suggestion is to put it only in for 10 minutes. Then take another piece of the grease-proof paper and then put it on top to roll it out. It won't stick to your rolling pin. So I'm going to make it into a circle so that when I roll it out, I'm hopefully going to get a circle. But remember, it's supposed to look free-form, so it's okay if it doesn't do that. So as you can see, I can almost roll it out now, but I'm going to put it in there while I make the other dough. So I'm going to put this like this. into the refrigerator for a few minutes. Now I'm going to go to the next dough. But first, I have to kind of wipe out my food processor. I don't have 2 food processors. And normally I wouldn't be doing a fruit and a savory, but I wanted to do something different for you all today. I wanted to be show you that there are different kinds of galettes. I mean, there are obviously ones that you can eat for dinner or ones you have for dessert. So that's why I did that. Now, I'm one of these people that when I make cookies and everything, I don't even wash out the in between making each dough. I don't wash it out. And as my nephew Marcus would say, I make limited editions, and it becomes favorites. And I say, well, don't fall in love because I can't make this again. Okay, so now it's time. Let me give this a nice wipe. Obviously, if you're making one at a time, you would have a clean dough hook and you would have a clean thing, but it's okay. We're gonna love it. Okay, put it down. It's time to make the fruit galette crust. That one is more pliable, greasy, so it's really important to get that into the refrigerator so it can firm up a little bit. And then I'm going to show you a trick that I learned when I made this one that was easy too, so you don't even have to put it in the refrigerator. Okay, so this calls for 2 cups of flour and a half a teaspoon of salt. Of course, I mixed it together, so it's in there. So I'm going to put that in there. Do we have any questions? Okay. And then it calls for crumbled plain or pistachio halvah. And it also calls for brown sugar and brown sugar and salt. So I have this all in here. This is my halvah. I squish it together. I measured it out. It was 7 ounces. Measured it on my measuring weight scale. And now I'm going to put this into a basket. Okay. Also, it calls for cold butter. This one I cut up already so that it's all ready to go in lots of different pieces. As you can see, they don't have to be uniform. They're going to mix really nicely. Goes in. Okay, have it all in, have it all in. And then the next thing you want is an egg. Make sure your butter is cold. It has to be in the refrigerator because you want to make a dough. You want to make the pastry, and it works better when the butter is cold. I typically use unsalted butter for making my pastries. Okay, so now it's time to put on the top. Make sure it's closed. Put it on and do the dough. Calls for 1 to 2 tablespoons of water, ice water. This is ice water. See it starting to crumble. Start to become a dough. This one I want to check on because this one gets very wet. And then it's more difficult to, oh, this one came out better than the other one. Okay, can you see? You put your finger in there and the ingredients don't come on your finger. It's nice. It's a nice consistency. That's the consistency you want. You can't smell it, but it smells like halva. And boy, if you like halva, this smells delicious. Okay, so the next thing I have to do is the same what I did for the other one, which is putting it on the grease-proof paper. Okay, I'm going to show you the way I did it the other day.
Bernice, Bernice,
yes.
If the dough is too wet, how do you get it so it's a little better?
You're going to have to add more flour.
Okay.
You have to add more flour. That's why you do 1 tablespoon at a time. It says 1 to 2 because you know, it could be that your halva is a lot more moist than before. You know, like sometimes the halva is moist, sometimes it's dry. My halva actually was much drier. The one I used to make the pie over there, I mean the galette over there, was not was very moist, and it was very moist, very difficult to work with. I had to put it in the refrigerator for a second. However, let me show you what I do. I like to do it on the tray. This is what I like to do. I put my grease-proof paper on the tray. And then what I do is I take out the halva crust with my fingers. Make sure I get everything out of there because it's so delicious. Now you can put a little bit extra flour on your hands so that it doesn't stick. That's fine too. Sometimes the flour on the bottom doesn't all stick, but that's okay. You can just put it together and mush it together when you get it on the tray. Okay, so one way you can do it is you put it into the refrigerator after you've made it into a circle. What I did the last time, and I'm going to show you because it worked out really nice. You can see it came out really nice. Is what I do is I take it and I use the other one, push it together so it's a circle. I use the other one and I push it down. See how soft and pliable it is to work with? Extremely easy. I can take my rolling pin and roll it out a little bit. I do it on the tray because then I don't have to move it to somewhere else. Now the grease-proof paper comes right off, so you can push it out. Or you can do it with your fingers. You do it with your fingers, put some flour on it, which I'm going to do right now. And move it with your fingers. All you do is like that. Put it back on. Give it a roll. This is free form, which means that it doesn't have to look wonderful in the process of rolling it. You make it wonderful when you free form it and fold it, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Okay. And then all I have to do is go like this because it's so moist. So, like this. Actually, I want it on the other side because it fell off there. So I turned it over, put that over here. I want some over here. Do I want any over here? Yeah, I'll have some over here. You can make it fix. Okay, so I'm going to put this into the refrigerator just for a few minutes while I show you how to do the vegetable galette. It gets very moist. Okay, let's just put this in the refrigerator like this. And I'll take the other one out. Okay. So, I'll give my hand a little bit of a wipe. Although if I was cooking for my family, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would probably just have it mixed all together, but that's me. Okay, so this is how you want it. You see how it's a little more harder? So it'll be easier to work with, okay? So now, what you want to do is you want to get the top grease-proof paper, and you want to slide your tray under. And you don't have to work on your tray. You can work off your tray. You can work on your counter. But I tend to do this, just saves me a step. Okay, so then you want to roll it out. You start from the middle and work out. Always start from the middle and work out. Start from the middle and work out. Now adjust the paper because it gets little wrinkles. You want to adjust the paper. Start from the middle, work out. Start from the middle, work out. You're trying to make a nice circle, but it's okay. It's free form. Doesn't have to be perfect. Starting from the middle and working out. What you want to do is you want to get it to the almost to the edge of the sides. Give it a good, there you go. So it's almost ready to be used. Okay. This is a very long, let me see, to make the filling, you have to cut vegetables and then you have to saute them, and the recipe will show you how. I'm sure everybody knows how to saute vegetables. So I decided not to show you how to do that, but what I will show you is how to cut them and what the size of them should be. I'm almost done with rolling it out. Just about. Okay, how are we doing? Out. More. Okay, leave that there and let's go over to my stove. Okay, so this recipe, the spinach and feta galette, calls for obviously spinach. So what I usually do is I take a package of 10 ounces of spinach. I either defrost it in my refrigerator overnight or in my microwave. And then I take the water and it's from the defrosting and also it's from the microwaving. I give it a good squeeze, the spinach, into the sink. And then I take the spinach. It should look like this when it's all squeezed out. It should look pieces should be no water in there. All it is the spinach. The vegetables that I sauteed are carrots, potatoes, sweet potato, regular potatoes, sweet potatoes, and I used mushrooms and what else? Leftover vegetables. If you have leftover vegetables, this is a perfect time because it's after Thanksgiving. This is a perfect something to make for Thanksgiving when you have a lot of extra vegetables that have already been cooked. All you do is do your spinach part add all those vegetables together, and then you put it into your crust and put it into the oven, and you have a wonderful dinner. I have done that before. I used some of the peas that were from Thanksgiving in here. And now I'm going to show you the size that I want you to cut for sauteing the vegetable. So you want to have it just a little tiny little bit like that. And to make it easier, buy the ones that are already organic and already cleaned. And you just rinse them and dry them, and then you cut them to that size. That's the size you want to saute, so that when they're done and sauteed, this is what they would look like. That's what they'd look like. Potatoes. This is what the size of the potato would look like. The sweet potatoes is like this. And you know what? I don't even take the skin off the potatoes or the skin off the sweet potatoes. That's nutritious. It's really very delicious too. So that's your carrot part. Now for the celery. This is the way I cut the celery. First, I cut it down the middle. If it's wide, this one's not so wide, but this one is, then I cut it again. So I guess I was cutting it in thirds. And then what you do is I put them together, and then I make the same kind of little cuts, okay? Without cutting my hands. And this is the size that you would use when you saute. Onions, you would cut the same size, and then you would saute it. It tells you in the recipe, it says you should cook it for 3 minutes, and then add this vegetable and cook 3 minutes more until it's nice and soft. You can see, and I'm going to show you right now what it looks like when it's all cooked and mixed together. So this is what it looks like when it's all cooked and mixed together. It's got the spinach, it's got the mushrooms, it's got the potatoes, it's got the celery. And you know what I had left over is I had some leftover broccoli from Thanksgiving. That's going in my galette today. And you can freeze vegetables that have been cooked. So these are frozen, and then I took them out, defrost them, and cut them into pieces, and they're going into my galette. Okay. So we're ready to put this galette into the oven in 2 seconds. Let's go back over to in fact, why don't I bring it over here? It'll be easier. So we have our wonderful, absolutely gorgeous galette pastry. This is the pastry. I can even make it a little bit more out to make it so that when I bring it in, you want to put, let me see, is it good here? Let me see, I just want to make sure that it's even, okay? You can see it's very thin here, but once you bring it up, it just gets nice and thicker. Okay, so then what you do is you put the vegetables in the center. Very carefully put the vegetables in the center. And by the way, if you think that your galette is not, you add an egg to this, but if you think your galette is not so moist, you want it to be a little more moist because it's going to be cooking in the oven at a temperature of 400 degrees, which I've already preheated before we started. If you think it's not, if it's not moist enough, add a tiny little bit of vegetable broth to it that you can get in the store. Okay, so you want to push it down just a little bit. But you want to give it at least a couple of inches for the crust because you're going to bring it up and you're going to pleat it. Like my hands. I usually start at the end that's the bigger end, you know, like that's longer, and then it's easier to start pleating. And what I do to help me is I take my grease-proof paper. So I bring it up like that with my hand underneath. Bring it like this. See how easy it comes off? Definitely get grease-proof paper. Then you take this end, your hand goes underneath. Leave this here. You want to pleat it. So you're going to pleat it like that. Then you do again, you want to make a pleat. So you bring it up. Bring it up. I want to make this a little bit longer. So I bring it up and pleat and attach.
Someone asked, where do you buy or can you get the grease-proof paper?
1 second and I'll show you. I call it grease-proof paper. It's really parchment paper, and you can get it at Costco. They now have it in stock, or you can get it in the supermarket in the section where they have baggies, Ziploc baggies. It's in that section. Usually, it's on the bottom, you know, the bottom row. So, oh my God, there's a little hole. Do I care? No, I'm going to pleat that. Pleat again. Pleat. Pleat. And then I'm now going to shape it, okay?
Another question.
Yes.
Did you put spices in the sauteed vegetables?
In the sauteed vegetable, the recipe calls for oregano, dried oregano or fresh oregano. I happen to use the dry one. You could also use, there's minced garlic that's also in the recipe. And you can also use parsley, fresh parsley. It's in the recipe you'll get when you ask for it from Helene or Marcia. I don't know which one is going to be sending it. So this is my free form. Now I want to make a little pleat here because I want it to look real pretty when it comes out of the oven. So this is what it looks like before it goes into the oven. Now I put feta cheese inside here. Sometimes it bakes it and then it gets, you know, like it kind of like disintegrates. So I like to put some feta cheese on the end when it comes out as a garnish. And I also like to use some chopped scallions, which I will put on top anyway, and I like to have them baked. So I'm now going to put this into the oven, 400 degrees on the bottom shelf of your oven. And I'm going to set the timer. If I can remember where the recipe is. Okay. I'm going to set the timer for 35 minutes. And that's going, it's on the lower oven. Before you slice this, after you take it out of the oven and it looks like this, okay? See, I sprinkled the feta cheese on the outside and I put some extra scallions on top. Before you slice it, make sure it's cool. If it's not cool, it won't slice equally. It won't slice uniformly. It'll disintegrate. So wait 15 minutes at least before you cut into it, okay? So let's get going on the fruit galette. First, I'm going to wash my hands. Okay, my fruit galette, I'm going to take out, check on the crust. It'll still stay in there for a few more minutes. So while that's in there for a few more minutes, I'm going to show you what I do for the fruit galette. We already did our crust. I have my oven on for 400 degrees. It's only going to bake for about 35 minutes also, but while that's baking, hopefully, did I set the timer? I did. I set the timer, so maybe by the time we're all done, that'll be done so I can show you what it looks like coming out of the oven. Okay, so I have already cut up some, I didn't know how long it would take, so I wanted to make sure that I had things ready for you. So I cut up the strawberries. This is the way you want them to look. The strawberries for the crust, for the inside of the fruit galette. So this is the way you would cut up a strawberry, obviously. You take off the top, and then I do it like this. I just cut down, down, and down. And that's how you would cut the strawberries. I put in about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of blueberries. These blueberries are amazing. Look at the size of them, and they're very tasty. I think I got them in Safeway. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to put apples in where it says 1 to 2 apples. I think I did 1.5 I did 1 large one and 1 small apple. And then you also want to put in other fruit. So I used pears. So I took the skins off of both fruits. And in order to save time, and I do this a lot, is I take my fruit, I take the skins off, and then what I do is I take some lemon juice and I sprinkle it all over the fruit, and that keeps them looking as white as they do. I did this morning. Usually, if you would cut apples and you would cut pears, they would turn because of a chemical reaction to the air. So try that at home. Anytime you want to cut something for a fruit salad or for a fruit pie, you can just take it and douse it in. This is one lemon that I've juiced, and it keeps the color of your fruit the way it should be, which is beautiful white. This particular pie I put in, I think I put in, besides blueberries and strawberries, I put in a mango. So I'm interested to taste that because my granddaughters love mangoes. So I'm interested to taste that. By the way, it does freeze. It freezes really well. So that's something to think about as well. I even froze the savory galette, the spinach savory galette. And I didn't freeze it for very long, but I did freeze it and it came out wonderful. I let it defrost in the refrigerator overnight, and then I popped it into my toaster oven, and it was wonderful. It was delicious. So I'm going to lift out the fruit because I don't want the extra juice in the fruit mixture that I'm going to put into in my fruit galette. So I'm going to lift it out like this, let it drain, and then put it in with the other fruit. Lift it out, put it in there, lift it out. I don't like this one. This one, let me see what this is wrong with this. No, it's just lemony. Good. Okay. So put that in there. I probably absorbed some of it, but who cares? It's going to be delicious. Okay, so I have my fruit in here. I'm going to take a spoon, mix them all together. The recipe tells you the quantities that you need. And then the next ingredient is cinnamon, sugar, and a teaspoon of each, and cornstarch. Cornstarch so that the fruit that makes juices will not make a juicy pie all over the place. Now, I will tell you that sometimes the blueberries tend to emit some liquid, which they did in this one, but it still didn't stick to the bottom. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to stir this up. It smells so delicious. Okay, I think I'm gonna put a drop more cornstarch in there because I'd like it to be nice and firm, the fruit. Cornstarch. Starch does nothing to the taste. It just makes it thicken. Okay. So I'm gonna put a little bit more. I'm gonna go a little teaspoon. I'll get one of this. Just about a teaspoonful. Let's see what this is. Yeah, that's better. Mix it all up. Okay, so I am ready now to take my crust out and show you how to put the galette together. Are there any questions about the recipe? Pretty straightforward. I don't think you'll have it.
Somebody asked where you get the paper.
Either in Costco, a large economy size, and then it rolls out. Sometimes you can get it in the supermarket. Sometimes they come in already pre-cut sizes in the supermarket. I bought it that way, or it comes on a roll and you have to cut it. Or you can get it from King Arthur. The brown one came from King Arthur. The brown parchment paper came from King Arthur. Okay, I'm going to take out my crust. Sometimes, if you want another taste layer to this fruit pie, you can put something else on the bottom. Like, for example, if you have pistachio butter, you can put pistachio butter on the bottom and really make it pistachio flavor if you're really into pistachios. Or you could take a chocolate, you know, if you like chocolate, melted chocolate that has a little bit of sugar so that it's spread in consistency. I'm just going to do it plain today. So you take your fruit and you put it in the center, just like you did with the vegetable one. Okay. Now, if you want to arrange the fruit to make it look, you know, more even, you can do that. I do it with my hands. Make it look pretty. Flatten it down a little bit. You want to have at least 1.5 to 2 inches on the sides, just like you did with the other one. And the same way you did the vegetable galette, you want to do the fruit one. So you want to bring up the crust, and then you want to pleat it. What I found with this particular dough, and don't, you know, get upset when you're making it, it tends to split. We'll fix it in the end. I'll show you how, if it does. Okay, this makes a very lovely, delicious crust. You'll really love the taste if you like halva. Eat it, you know, if you don't like halva, it could be just a butter and flour one. See how it cracks a little bit? No problem. I'm going to bring my little hand there and I'm going to fix it. It's so moist that you can do that in this stage, okay? You just want to make sure that the fruit doesn't come out. And if I'm afraid that it's, oh my God, it needs a little extra, I just rob from Peter and pay Paul. Okay, and then we bring it up. And bring it up. This one is be very sticky. We don't like you over here. We'll fix you in a second. Bring it up. I'm glad things are happening like this so that when I show you how to fix it, you won't get disappointed or upset or frustrated. My extra over there. Bring it up. I'm going to take some from here because there's a lot to bring over here. Okay, so over here is a mess. Why has it done that? I don't know. I'm going to make it so that it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to go underneath like that, and I'm going to bring this up. Remember, it's going to bake beautifully in the oven. I did the same thing over there. Give it a little bit extra over here. A little extra over here. And then I'm going to get a drop of flour. I'll bring it over here so you can see it. I'm fixing it. See what I'm doing? I'm fixing it. I want to make sure that it has no holes so that the fruit juices, when it bakes, won't escape through those holes. Now what I want to do is I want to make it look pretty. So I kind of bring it with this part of my hand and I go like that. This is a real delicious way to eat fruit. Okay, let me show you how it's been fixed. I fixed it. Remember, it was all torn and now it's fixed. And the fact that it looks like that is okay because it says it's a free form pie. It's supposed to look like that. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is you want to put a little bit of sugar and cinnamon on top to make the crust look like it did over there, which is a little brown look. So you take your cinnamon and you sprinkle lightly. This is a pachka. This is a more pachka than the other one. The other one is an easier crust to work with, but you won't be disappointed when you taste it. So you put a little bit on by sprinkling. And if you want, you put a little extra in the middle. Why not? Cinnamon is my fave. Okay, you want to get rid of the extra one. You want it to look good in the oven too. Then you take your sugar. Yeah. Then you take your sugar, and I like to put it in my fingers and just go around. Put a little extra on the top. Put a little more. That gives it that shiny crust and also is a nice flavor on top. Okay. Anybody have any questions about how to put the dough together?
If you don't have a dough attachment on your food processor, can you put it in the Vitamix?
I've never done it in the Vitamix because it's a taller thing. I would suggest you do it by hand instead, or with your, do you have a hand mixer? Do you have a hand mixer? Try the
Hand mix-
hand
Okay.
mixer will work. I have a dough attachment, so that's why I use the dough attachment. Years ago, I did not, and I used my hand mixer to mix all my doughs.
Okay.
Now I'm fancy. but you could use you can use an electric hand mixer. Some of them have hooking, but you don't have to have it. You can just do it by hand. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I think that we're gonna put that into the oven. So this one calls for also 400 degrees, but only for 10 minutes. And then you lower the temperature and it bakes on the middle shelf. And then you lower the temperature to 350 for 20 to 25 minutes. So I'm gonna put this in my lower oven. And let that bake. The other one has 18 minutes to go, but I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Now, what I found this last time that I made this with the pistachio crust, I found that I had to raise the temperature a little bit. So don't get, if it needs to bake longer at the 350 cycle, that's okay too. You want to make it, you want it to look like this when it's done. You want to touch the crust. It should be a little bit soft, but when it will harden when it cools. But you want it to look like this. It has to look this color. The same thing goes for the cheddar cheese galette crust. You want it to look like this. It will probably be almost hard. And I'm going to show you the bottom of it because it really did a wonderful job on the bottom as well. So you can see I can pick this one up, no issues, right? And this is what the bottom looks like. It baked really well in the oven on the lower shelf. And you can't smell it, but it really smells delicious. So I'm going to show you in the oven what it's looking like baking. It only has 16 minutes left. And I will show you how it looks while it's baking. Can you get in there or should I open up the oven? I could open up the oven. Can everybody see? Is it difficult to see? You can see how the cheese
We see it.
is bubbling. The cheese is bubbling a little bit, but you can see that it's starting to get golden color. Okay, but it still has a way to go. It still has a way to go. And the other one I just put in for 10 minutes at 400 and it'll bake for 400 and then I will lower the temperature. And last time I had it was in for not for the 25 minutes. It was in for more like 40 minutes. For some reason, my oven must have been slow. I think I baked it on the bottom oven. So I don't know. My top oven is a fast oven. My lower oven is a slower oven. I don't know how your oven works. I don't know why, but it's what happens. It's what it is. Are there any questions about what I've just showed you? Unfortunately, it won't be done for a while, but I'm going to let Peter taste the fruit galette, and he'll tell you the consistency. He'll tell you what it tastes like. He'll tell you about the flavor. I sprinkled some slivered pistachio nuts on top as a garnish for that. You can also put fresh mint leaves on top. It'll very pretty too. This goes exceptionally well with ice cream. My husband's favorite way to have dessert is cake with ice cream. So I'm going to cut a piece for him and let him taste it, and you'll hear his delight, I'm sure.
Bernice, there's a couple questions. One is,
Okay.
how thick is the rolled dough? It's fairly
How
thin.
thick?
The dough you rolled out is fairly thin.
Yes, it's about an eighth of an inch. It's about an eighth of, would you say that?
16 to an
A 16th to an eighth of an inch is how you roll it out to. As you see, it wasn't really a lot of flour. This particular crust calls for a cup and a quarter of flour and calls for a cup of cheese. So it makes a very small amount of dough. You saw the amount it makes. So when you roll it out, it rolls about to either an eighth or a 16th of an inch. And you can see here, if Peter wants to show in, you can see the depth of the crust here. That's about an eighth of an about an eighth of an inch, wouldn't you say? Yeah. This one also, what happens is the side, the fruit doesn't almost when you pull it up, you don't get a lot of fruit at the edge. So you get that nice crust like you would a pie, a pie crust. And it's also about the same. We'll cut it and I'll see what.
And another question, Bernice, is
Yes.
the vegetables will be at room temperature. So the vegetable one should be room temperature, or both of them room temperature?
I would suggest that you make your vegetables in the morning and then your dough just before you're ready to put it into the oven, meaning that your vegetables should be at room temperature, because otherwise, if your vegetables aren't at room temperature, if they're too warm, the dough will get soggy. Okay. So I'm going to cut the piece, and here's hoping that it comes out nicely so that you can see. So this is what the crust looks like. So yeah, it's about an eighth of an inch. And let's see if it comes out. I love to, oh, yes, yay, it came out. So this is what it looks like. Okay, and I'm going to put it down. So it does cut nicely. And Peter, if you give them a shot of what it looks like, and even on that side, it's nice. You could see that there's a lot of crust here, but the crust is luscious. So we're going to let Peter be the taste tester, and we'll see what he says. Oh, by the way, I was reading on the internet that you don't want soggy crust on the bottom. And the reason is because salmonella grows on the wet dough. So you don't want to do that. Okay. That was terrible. I'll give you another bite. Okay, here we go.
Yummy, yummy.
And here's the crust part, as you can see. The crust with the delicious blueberry. I'll give you that too. How's that? I dropped half of it on the floor. Okay, so I can't, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I haven't told you about this particular recipe. The spinach one tastes best room temperature. I made this yesterday, so it was in the refrigerator, so it's cold. So I'm not gonna let them try it right now, but it tastes best when it's at room temperature. As I said, leave it for 15 minutes before you cut into it. I will cut it to show you how it cuts as well. I know I said. So. By the way, this tastes great with chutney, mango chutney, and it's wonderful with mango chutney. So let me get another plate so you can see what it looks like. Okay. So this is, again, cuts beautifully. Do you see how it cuts? A wonderful slice. And this is what it looks like inside. You see how the spinach is marbled with the other vegetables in there. Now, if you don't keep kosher and you're okay with mixing meat and cheese, you could add chicken to this or turkey to this, and it will come out delicious as well. Make it a more, protein instead of just a vegetarian, delicious dinner. So this is my spinach and feta vegetable galette. And this is my fruit galette. And I've got a few more minutes. If anybody else has any questions. I'm looking at the timer. It's almost ready to come out of the, oh, it's almost, no, it's got 8 more minutes on it, so I can't do, but let's take a look at it and see how it's cooking. Yeah, it's starting to get a little golden brown. Let me open up. Do we need to open up the oven?
Yeah.
It's starting to do that. Does everybody see it?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. And the one on the bottom, it's baking. It takes a little longer and it will come out wonderful. You don't have to put egg white on the crust, on the outer crust. You know how sometimes you have to do that when you make pies, and you, so that it doesn't burn and it bakes evenly. That's my timer to tell me to lower the oven. So that's my lower oven, and I'm going to lower that to 350. Start. And I'm going to turn that off and put it on for another 30 minutes to start. I don't understand my oven. Anyway, if nobody has any questions, it has always been a pleasure to come to the Women of Baltimore Hebrew Congregation to present to you. I love making, and cooking. I love making food. I love making delicious recipes. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. I'd love to share them with you.
Thank you, Bernice.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah. We now know all about galettes. We didn't know that. If you didn't know about it before, now you know about what they are.
Well, you need to try one, really. It's so delicious and so easy. And by the way, that's for like an eight to 10 people. If you serve, something else with it, like if you serve starch, you don't have to. But if this is a light, or you serve a salad, you serve soup, salad, and oh my God, there's your dinner. So it's a wonderful way to have it all done and all ready, and you can make it in advance and reheat it in your oven as well. So it's a very easy way to entertain.
Great. Thank you.
You're
Now,
welcome.
I want to say something else because we only know you as a chef, but you are a very talented leader and been all over the world with travels with your husband and lived in different places and has been quite a leader in her own sisterhood and at our district level. And then I think was it Girl Scouts too?
I was a Girl Scout leader, yes.
Yeah. And some other things. So she's multi-talented and we're thrilled to have her. Thanks, Bernice.